Good morning, children. Today we're going to talk about Earth. This is Earth. This is the place where we all live. Yes, we live in this big bubble. We can call this big bubble a closed system. But why can we call it so? Because the Earth's materials cycle between the atmosphere, the biosphere, the hydrosphere, and the lithosphere. Let's watch this short video to understand better what these four spheres are.
Earth is kind of like a puzzle. And I don't mean a puzzle like, where did my brother put my hairbrush? Or what exactly is in the tacos they serve on Taco Tuesday? I mean that our planet is made up of four very different parts that all work together to make Earth the lovely place that we know it to be. We call these parts spheres, and between them, they contain all the stuff on our planet. Everything from the fish in the ocean to the air we breathe. Earth has four spheres: the geosphere, the biosphere, the hydrosphere, and the atmosphere. So what exactly are the spheres, and what's in them? Let's take a look at two, the geosphere and the biosphere. Up first is the geosphere. Geo comes from the Greek word for ground. You may have heard this before in words like geology or geography. It basically means having to do with the Earth. And in a way, the geosphere is kind of like the skeleton of our planet. All of the other spheres are built on top of it. It's made up of all the rocks and minerals on Earth, from the biggest boulders to the tiniest grains of sand. And all of the landforms that those rocks and minerals make up are part of the geosphere too. I'm talking volcanoes, canyons, beaches, mountains, you name it. If it's made out of solid Earth, it's part of the geosphere. Now, it's important to remember that the geosphere includes only non-living stuff. Living things do need to eat though, and all living things are part of another one of Earth's spheres, the biosphere. Bio is Greek for life, and like geo, you've probably heard it before in words like biology, the study of life. The biosphere is made up of many different biomes. Biomes are regions that have similar kinds of plants, animals, and other living things that have adapted to live in that particular region's terrain and climate. Deserts and forests are types of biomes. So are rainforest, grasslands, and wetlands. All of these biomes and many more make up the biosphere. Okay, now that we know what's in these two spheres, let's put them together and try to figure out what belongs to which sphere. Imagine a lovely forest meadow, a bird perched on a rock chirping away, a deer standing in the tall grass, a mountain standing tall in the background, and a stream flowing through the clearing. Ah, I can almost smell it. Almost everything in this scene is part of either the geosphere or the biosphere. Let's see if we can figure out which parts go into which sphere. Let's start with the geosphere. We know that there's nothing alive in the geosphere, so we can rule out all the plants and animals. Water is also part of a different sphere, but we'll talk about that later. When we take away the living things, we're left with all the solid earth parts of the scene. The rock the bird was standing on, the soil the grass was growing out of, the mountain in the distance, and the bed the stream water flowed through. So what we're left with is the geosphere. Rocks, soils, and landforms. Got it? Now let's think about the biosphere. Unlike the geosphere, everything in the biosphere is alive. So the rocks, the mountain, and the stream, they don't count. Now we're just left with the living things, the grass, the birds, the deer. Voila! You found the biosphere. Let's dive in. See what I did there? I said that because the first sphere we're going to talk about is the hydrosphere. Hydro comes from the Greek word for water, and all of the water on Earth is in the hydrosphere. This means that every single drop of salt water in the oceans, but also all of the fresh water in lakes and rivers, is in this sphere. And it includes all of the water trapped in glaciers as ice, and the water held deep underground. Now, there's also water in the air around us, too, which we can sometimes see in the form of rain and snow. Those things come from clouds, which happen to be way up in the atmosphere. Our last but certainly not least sphere. This sphere contains all of the gases on the planet, which is fitting since atmos comes from the Greek word for air. Although we can't really see the atmosphere or grab onto it, it reaches everywhere and covers the entire planet like a giant snuggly blanket. But our atmosphere blanket isn't all the same. It's split up into many different layers. The troposphere is the lowest layer. It contains 80% of the air on the planet. It's also where all of our weather takes place. Above the troposphere is the stratosphere. There's no weather up there and much less air, but there's still important gases in it that help absorb harmful rays from the sun. The mesosphere is the coldest layer of the atmosphere and sits on top of the stratosphere. There's almost no breathable air up there, and even less in the thermosphere above it, where you might bump into some satellites flying around the planet. The last layer of the atmosphere is the exosphere. That's the highest you can go and still be on Earth. Once you leave the exosphere, you're officially in space, baby. Now, these two spheres can be kind of hard to tell apart, so let's investigate. At the beach. The beach is the perfect place to take a closer look at what pieces of our environment make up the hydrosphere and which are parts of the atmosphere. The beach is, of course, right next to the ocean, and since the ocean holds most of the water on our planet, it's the biggest part of the hydrosphere. The rivers that flow into the ocean are also a big part. And so is the rain that's just starting to fall on our beach. Well, that's a bummer, but check this out. While the rain is a part of the hydrosphere, the clouds it came from are actually part of the atmosphere, and the wind that pushes the waves around is part of the atmosphere too. Even though we can't see it, the atmosphere is all around us in the form of the air that we breathe. Our planet couldn't be the amazing place we know it to be without the 4 spheres. And it can be a tough puzzle to put together, but the result is pretty amazing. I think you'll agree.
So this morning, before I sent you today's email, I went into the kitchen and had some cereal for breakfast. Cereal comes packed in a box, just like many other food items we consume. Some come packed in boxes, some come packed in packets, some come in cans, some come in jars, you name it. But what happens to these leftover bits? We throw them away in the trash bin. But keep in mind that the Earth, as we said earlier on, is a closed system. So while we can throw these items out of the house, we can't quite throw them out of the earth. They remain somewhere in here. Look what has been happening to the earth because of this. What can we do with all this waste? We can refuse it, reduce it, reuse it, or recycle it. Let's watch.
Hello, I am the Earth. Yup, the very planet you live on. There are 3 words which start with the letter R, which I love. They are reduce, reuse, and recycle. Do you know why I love them so much? Because they are almost magical words. They can make all living things, as well as myself, be happier. I said that they are almost magical because without your help, it won't work. They need all of you children in order to do the trick. Each and every one of you are the real 3 R's magicians, those 3 words which can change the world. Do you want to know how? Yes? Well, let's find out. The first R is for reduce. If you think about it, there are many things you don't need. When you go to the supermarket, I'm sure you can take your own canvas bags instead of using disposable ones given to you. Like that, you will be reducing the amount of plastic, which is very contaminating. And I'm sure that you don't need to print out so many documents or photos, nor leave lights, television, or computers on when you're not using them. If you remember this, you'll be reducing the amount of paper being used as well as energy, and in turn will be helping to reduce the contamination. And these are just a few examples. I am sure you can think of many more different ways to reduce what you are using or creating unnecessary waste. The following question will help you with this task. Do I really need this, or is this just a whim? The second R is for recycling. Now, it is easier than ever to recycle things we don't need anymore so that they can be reused. Near your home, you can find places like the recycling station and containers for cans, plastic, paper, or organic waste. They each have specific colors to make it easier to identify. By using them, you will avoid contaminating nature, the rivers and seas, as well as the atmosphere, which is the air we breathe. And finally, we have the third R, which refers to reuse. How many things do you think we can reuse again and again instead of throwing them away? Let's see. A piece of paper that has only one side printed on, a carton box, a plastic bottle. You think now. With just a little bit of imagination, I'm sure you can come up with many more exciting and fun new uses for them. And remember, if you apply the 3 R's rule, you will make me a much cleaner planet with less contamination and where we can all enjoy a better life. Because, as you know, children can make the world of difference.